Hello everyone, I am Manish and in this video we will be talking about C++ STL. The STL stands for Standard Template Library and it includes various algorithms, functions and various data structures such as vector, set, map, int and various advanced data structures like priority queue, heap and also stacks and queues. To include C++ STL in your code, you need to write these two lines of code before writing your code. These are actually the header files and are necessary to include are necessary to be included in your code. This is how you include them. You need to write them before everything. Without this, you can't include your STLs. Yes. Now let's get started with the STL. First, learn what are the benefits of STL. In STL, there are pre-written codes which you can use, and these are actually the highly optimized and error-free codes, so that your implementation become easier and you don't need to implement everything from scratch. You get the best implementation of various algorithms and data structures in this STL container, in this STLs, in the STL and these codes are very much optimized and error free, and so it reduces your work it reduces your work a lot. You can use this GFG link to learn more on STL. Here various algorithms and various functions and even the containers are very are given here, so you can use this link to learn more. Now, starting with our first container, vector. It is a dynamic sized array, and its size can be increased or decreased depending on our requirement and in runtime. That is, the number of elements can be increased or decreased. There are three ways to initialize a vector. First is vector int v. By this, we initialize an empty vector of integers. This actually denotes the which type of vector you want to use. For example, we can have a vector of characters, or even we can have a vector of booleans by writing here bool, or even we can have a vector of strings, right? So by writing int, I am denoting it a vector of integers. By the second way to initialize a vector is by writing vector int and then passing n in this round parenthesis as a parameter. Now what is this n? N is the size of vector. So basically it initializes a vector of n elements and all are having value 0. Now the third way to initialize is vector of int, right, and then passing two arguments n and k. The first argument n is the size of the vector, and the second argument k is actually denoting the value with which all the elements of this vector would be initialized, right? So let us first understand this with the code. So to initialize an empty vector, we write this: to initialize a vector with size given in specified in this parenthesis, and all these elements having size all these elements having value 0, we write this, and this initializes a vector of size n and having all elements having value 8, right? So we tried if we try to print these vectors, then we will get something like this. Let's first comment this out. uh, okay, yes, so let's see what are there in these vectors. So yes, as you can see, the first line is empty, so it denotes that the first vector is empty. The second vector is having 5 elements with all having value 0, and the third vector is having 9 elements all with value 8, right? Now let's this was the initialization part of vector. Let's now understand what are various functions in vector. The first function that we are going to learn today is v.pushback. It inserts the value x to the end of the vector, and its complexity is O of n. Right, so you must have understood it. The second function is v.popback. It deletes the last element, that is, removes the last element from the vector, and the size of vector now reduces by 1, right, by deleting the last element. It is also a one-time function. The third function is v.clear. It actually deletes all the elements from the vector, erases all the elements, and its complexity is O of n. The fourth function that we are going to learn today about vector is v dot size. It returns the size of the vector. It is also a one-time function. Now these square brackets are actually the operators. These are used to access the elements of the array, access the elements of the vector similar to the array. For example, if I want to print the ith element, then I will just write it v of I. If I want to print some example, for example 10th element, then I will write v of 10 in square brackets if that element exists. Right, let's understand these functions by code. Now, yes, now as we saw, the vector v1 is an empty vector. Now by writing v1 dot pushback, I am actually pushing 2 into this vector, and this 2 will go to the go into the last of the vector, that is go into the end of the vector. Now since this vector is empty, the 2 would be the first element, right? Now now this will push the 5. Now this will push second element to the vector, that would be 5. This will push the third element, that is 1, and the vector will look like 2 5 1, and this is going to push the fourth element, that is 4, to the vector. Now the vector v1, which was empty earlier, now is having size 4, and the elements are 2 5 1 and 4. Now I'll just print out this vector so that it would be clearly visible to you. Yes. Yes, the vector v1 is having elements 2 5 and 1 and 4. Right, now the next function we saw was pop back. Now what pop back does is it removes the last element, right? So the last element in this vector v1 was 4. So by writing v1 dot pop back, it removes this 4. Now again writing, so the array now becomes 2 5 1. If I'll print this array here, let's see what it shows. Okay. Now just writing it for one time, it will remove the last element. Yes, it has removed 4 from the vector. Right. Now again writing this pop back, it will remove 1, which was the last element now, and it will now this v1 vector will just have 2 and 5. Right, so it was having 2 5 1 4 earlier, then then the 4 got removed, and now 1 also got removed, so it is having 2 and 5 only as its element. Now the next function we learned was clear function. It actually deletes all elements from the vector, and vector becomes empty, right? So v2 earlier was having 5 elements, all having value 0. Now by writing v2 dot clear, it will delete all elements, and the size of v2 would be 0, right? v2 dot size returns the size of the vector. Now I'll just print this out. What happened? Okay, sorry. Yes, as you can see that the size of v2 is now 0, right? After clearing, the v2 got every element from v2 got deleted. Okay, that's it from the vectors point of vector side. Now yes, you can explore this. You can explore this STL from this link. So there are various other functions which are actually out of bound of this video, as it will contain some prerequisite. So you can explore these functions like upper bound, lower bound, or even you have binary search on this vector. If it is a vector sorted, you can explore this by using this link, right? Anytime.